James Edwards III released an article this morning for The Athletic detailing some of his thoughts on the Pistons front office and potential change we could see this offseason. We're going to talk about that as well as Malachi Flynn's 50-point night in Atlanta in just a moment.
Passing lane, Sky's a jam. Dynamite dunk and the crowd loves it.
Welcome back to Pistons Intellect. I'm your host, Jack Kelly. You can follow me on Twitter at Jack_Kelly_3. And if you're feeling so kind, please hit that subscribe button. 80 subscribers away from 1,000. Really want to hit that in the next week and a half. And you can also follow the channel on Instagram at Pistons_Intellect. So, wow. This morning, or whatever time of the day, you may have seen this article from James Edwards this morning. We got some serious news, I feel like. James released an article this morning for The Athletic titled Detroit Pistons End of Season Mailbag Part 2. Who has the hottest seat? And in Part 1, James spoke about the roster and some of the young guys. So go check that out. And obviously, I'm going to talk a little bit about the article today. But I'm not going to go into the whole thing because you should go subscribe, support James, support The Athletic. He does excellent work. So go there. It was an amazing read. Like I said, I'm going to hit on one key point I think that stood out to me the most. But yeah, James is the most plugged in guy with the Pistons, does amazing work. So I'm sure you're all familiar with him. So go check it out for sure. But as you can see on the talking points here in the title of the episode, where I want to start is the Monty Williams and Troy Weaver topic. And as you can see here, I've got Monty Williams out, Troy Weaver to stay. And in James' article, it's a mailbag. So fans have submitted questions. And one of the questions submitted to him was, what is the probability Monty Williams gets fired? And I'll just go through some quotes from James first, and then I'll give my thoughts. And I'm obviously curious to hear your thoughts. But in summary, James says, part of me believes that Williams' seat is currently hotter than Troy Weaver's. He's also gotten the sense that Gauze isn't against not only forking over the cash to relieve Monty Williams of his duties, but also publicly admitting his mistake in the process, as he feels that the new coach is needed sooner rather than later. James also says, part of Weaver's downfall over the last 2 years is the frugalness to improve the roster. There haven't been any big moves made. There's a bit of false confidence in how quickly the Pistons' young players would improve. Surely this will have to change going to next season. As for Williams, part of his downfall for this season was prioritizing the likes of Killian Hayes over Jaden Ivey and things like not staggering Ivey and Cade Cunningham until it was too late in the season. These are things you'd expect a coach who's being paid that much money and with Williams' experience to address sooner rather than he did. James kind of finishes this out by saying, with that said, I wouldn't be surprised if Williams' seat is hotter than Weaver's despite the financial commitment. A lot to unpack there, and there's much more in that article. But in another part of the article, James references how Weaver, he can see a world basically where Weaver is demoted in some sense, and the Pistons bring in a new vice president of basketball operations or president of basketball operations to make the final calls. So you could see like Weaver hanging around, still being involved in decisions, but not having the final say. But the thing to remember with the beat reporters, and honestly, James in particular, someone who's been with the team since I think the 2017-2018 season, who would have built relationships all throughout the organization. Like, you kind of have to read between the lines and, a beat reporter and, it's the, and while like until someone's fired or that kind of thing, like it's very rare you're actually going to get an intricate, like all these details about what's happening. So you got to read between the lines here. Basically what I take from this is that, and I'm surprised by this, and maybe I haven't been paying enough attention, but feels like Tom Gauze kind of has a bit of buyer's remorse and a bit of guilt about the Monty Williams decision. And because ultimately, as we know, Troy Weaver, he wanted either Kevin Ollie or Jason Collins. I might be forgetting one other name, but Monty Williams wasn't who Troy wanted. Even I believe when Monty's name was being floated around, like Troy was still very keen on Kevin Ollie. So feels like Gauze is feeling some remorse there. And basically, I mean, I guess it's a good thing that we can see that, James is kind of alluding to the fact that Tom Gauze isn't scared to pay up and he isn't scared to pay out the remaining 3 or 4 years of Monty's contract. He has no hesitation in doing that. It feels like if they think he's not the man, then it feels like Monty will be gone. And I'm like, it's kind of crazy to me. And so me personally, like, I think everyone involved, has made mistakes. And, James says in the article multiple times, like every part of the organization in the basketball operations needs to be reviewed and hopefully will be reviewed because the players, some haven't developed, the coaching's been poor, roster was built to fail to start with. Even someone like me who thought the roster was better than it probably was, like, there's no questions in, like, after 20 games, we knew this roster was like the worst in the league. So everyone involved has played a part in the downfall and just the worst season of all time for this franchise. But, I mean, for me personally, like, I get the frustration with Monty, but I personally would much prefer to see change in the front office and the decision makers because I believe, as I've said, like, sure, if you want to fire Monty, that's cool. Like, I'm not going to push back too much because, like, or if you say to me, we're going to get a new coach and we're going to get a new GM, I'm all for that. If you're going to get a new front office, but keep Monty for another season, see how it goes with another off season, I'm also all good with that. But for me, just firing Monty and changing the coach, we might see improvement next season. But for me, that front office needs a fresh set of eyes. Like, if Troy Weaver remains, Arntallon remains, and whoever else is in there making decisions, my hope for this team will not be very high, and it'll be just basically blind faith hoping Cade can drag this team to success because I just, like, for me, it's like, and it's acknowledging the article, like, I feel like Monty, this roster was horrific. And yes, he made some decisions which annoyed everyone and were baffling. But, I mean, I'm going to talk about some of the sophomore struggles later, towards the end of the episode. But I just feel like this roster from the jump, that's the front office. That's not Monty at all. That, like, I think he came, I can't remember exactly when Monty came. Maybe it was before the draft, but I feel like, he didn't have much of a say in building this roster. And, like, I would just, like I said, if Monty is gone, for me, I would like to see change in the front office still. Like, I don't think a heap is changing next season. Hopefully I'm wrong if this is the case, but if just Monty's changed out and the same decision makers are still there, and then you're potentially bringing in another voice and a president of basketball operations as well as Troy, who's your ex-GM. You also have, like, your old head coach in there, and Dwayne Casey, who I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but then you have Arntallon still there, Tom Gauze. We saw last summer, I was someone who loved the move to go get Monty. Clearly that was wrong. But you've got like 4 to 5 people in here who all have say, who all have ties to different players in the organization. Like, for me, the fresh eyes, I think you just need someone to come in and look at the talent here and, yeah, make some moves and not have, I feel like Troy's downfall is, like, he's so tied to this young talent. And, like, I feel like that's why he's so frugal, as James mentions, because, like, they had all their eggs in the basket of this young core maybe developing quicker than it has, and that they're just going to lead them to the promised land, when it's like, no, you need to make marginal moves. You can't just consistently eat contracts, trade away second round picks. What did they do with, like, Dwayne Dedman? The term's escaping my mind, but basically just, like, eating dead money. You can't, like, all these moves around the margins, I feel like just constantly are catching up to the Pistons, and they haven't been able to go and get make a big trade. Like, I love the move for Fontecchio, but they're going to have to pay him this summer. So, like, that was a nice move, sure. Tick on that one. But, like, you look at the Grimes deal, like, I think there's young talent here, no questioning that. How good it is, we can debate that. But you have Cade. So for me, it's not too late to just go, all right, let's get a new regime in, new coach, everything, because you've got Cade. You can build around that. That's attractive to smart minds in the NBA. I would like to think that any GM would love to come to Detroit and sees all the potential here. But yeah, for James to say Monty Williams, he thinks Monty Williams' seat is hotter than Troy Weaver's. That is a huge thing, because James and a beat reporter wouldn't just say that. Like, that, it wouldn't just say that without putting serious thought behind it, because obviously everyone starts talking about this now. His name's attached to it. So anything they put in these articles, and I think you have to look at it, assess it, and really kind of read between the lines, and just, yeah, like it kind of feels like the Pistons have, I think, 5 games left. It feels like it could be a similar story to last year, where within a week of the season finishing up, the Pistons are looking for a new coach. So let me know in the comments how you feel about that. Like I said, go read James's article. I'll put it in the notes here, so you can go and read it, sign up with The Athletic, because there was so much good stuff. And even in part 1 of his mailbag, which I haven't gotten to, like, so much good stuff in there. So shout out to James, because, yeah, he does an amazing job. But we're going to move on. The Pistons played a basketball game tonight. Now, they were meant to have Cade Cunningham playing tonight. And like I said in my last episode, I really just wanted to enjoy the rest of Cade Cunningham for this season. He was announced as a starter, and then at 7:33, with only moments till tip-off, he was ruled out on the broadcast, which, I don't know, maybe Cade just wasn't feeling it. Like, as in, like, it was that left knee soreness, I believe. He's been constantly on, like, the game time decision injury report, but he was out. So automatically, I was thinking this is going to be a tough game to watch. As for Cade and the rest of this season, I'm not sure what's going to happen there. I could see a world where he doesn't play these next 5 games, especially because the Pistons play a set of back-to-backs on Friday and Saturday. I could honestly see him definitely sitting one of those out, if not both. And then you've only got 3 games left. Maybe, yeah. I hope he plays, because I need him to play to get just for some enjoyment, because, he'd scored 3 30-point games in a row. I was really keen to see if he's going to score his 4th in a row, but he didn't nonetheless. But the story from tonight's game was Malachi Flynn scoring 50 points. The Pistons lost 113 to 121, but Malachi Flynn was incredible. He's 50 points at the second most scored ever by someone off the bench. Jamal Crawford, I believe, in 2018 scored the most with 51. He becomes the 8th Piston in franchise history to score 50 points. It's the first 50-point game since Blake's, I believe, in 2018 against Philadelphia, which we all remember that. And I think I saw a stat tweeted out by ESPN. He's the how do I say this? Malachi Flynn has the lowest scoring average of any player to score 50 points. So I think he's averaging like 5 points this season. So that's, for someone to score 50 points, that he's I guess he's like the least expected of all time. Like, the next guy was Terrence Ross, who in the season he scored 51 for the Raptors. I think he was averaging 7.5 points. So this is the most random, unexpected, bizarre 50-point display of all time. Malachi said in the post game, it's the first time he's ever scored 50 points. High school, college, NBA. Clearly, he scored 49 in high school. He said, and his coach took him out, which he was still angry about. He said that jokingly, but man, it was insane. 50 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, 5 of 9 from deep, 18 of 25. Like, I wish they kind of had a one, but Malachi had a moment when he dropped 50 with like 30 seconds to go. You saw him have like a smile on his face, just for a brief second, although they're losing. And like, I think it's a really cool moment for him. I know I've said some things on this podcast or this show about like he's kind of a bit frustrating because he's score first guard, but he's just obviously a bit small. But since being with the Pistons, he hasn't been shy about getting shots up. He's got a scorer's mentality, even if it frustrates me at times. But really cool to see him get reward tonight. I mean, I don't think this should change whether or not he's on the team next season. I don't see him as a long-term piece with Detroit, but I'm not going to go any further on that. On the night he scored 50 points because that was fun. He had 4-point plays, pull-ups. He just like was getting to the rim at will. It felt like scoring with the left hand, like just. It was kind of crazy. And even the Hawks fans were into the game cheering for him. Like it felt like when he was stuck on like 48 points, he took a couple of shots and you could hear the crowd get excited. So cool moment for him, moment he'll never forget. But shout out to Malachi Flynn. Because, yeah, that's just the most unexpected 50-point game of all time. Now, to close this one out, I probably should have finished with Malachi because I hate closing the show out on a negative. But Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey are starting to concern me. And I know they're sophomores. And, it's common for sophomores to have a dip in year two, especially after good rookie seasons, which I think Jalen Duren and Ivey were both second team or rookie. So it's common for rookies or guys to struggle in their second season. But I think for me, why I am concerned in it is because of like it's not the stats or the shooting splits as much as it is like the process and the way these guys are functioning. Like some of the habits I feel like they're developing or just things they're not developing are what is concerning. Like we can talk about the 3-point shot for Jaden Ivey, but some of the stuff he does in the half court, like I expected once Cade was out tonight, Jaden to have a good game because he's played, and I tweeted out some stats and they're in the community notes here. Like he has looked much better, more efficient when Cade's out of the lineup, and that's because he's got the ball in his hands. And I've kind of come to terms with that's the best version of Jaden. He needs the ball in his hands, and I thought tonight we'd get a really good effort from him. And tonight he had 8 points, 4 assists, 3 of 15 from the field. Only played 27 minutes. Malachi Flynn took most of Jaden's minutes in that sense, and I think that was the right call. But I was really disappointed with Jaden. Some of the stuff he does in the half court, like it's just, I spoke about the passing last episode. Shooting's been a disappointment. I have like his defensive effort at times this season, but yeah, you could have told me I guess the scary thing is like he had like a couple of stretches where it was just like missed shot, next trip down the floor, turnover, next trip down the floor, missed layup. Like, and those 3 possessions are just killers, 3 in a row, something like that. Like it's just he looked really bad. And then next to a guy like Marcus Sasser, who's just, I think is constantly kind of playing above where he should be, who also struggles to be a point guard. Like Pistons tonight just had like no, and when Cade's out of the lineup, their offense is just, it's a hard watch because they don't have anyone to set the team up. They don't, Malachi Flynn goes off for 50 tonight, but he's not a point guard. Like when Cade's not there, like watching Sasser, Ivy, and Flynn try and run the offense, it's really rough because, the offense gets stagnant and like it's just so reliant on like tough shot making or getting to the free throw line. Like, and some of that's on the coaching staff, but some of it's just like they just have no playmaking. So, and I feel like that's probably why tonight Jalen Duren, who he had 11 points, 4 boards, 28 minutes, like he's normally a guaranteed double-double if he's playing 28 minutes. But he tonight, like he struggled without Cade, but he also took 3 jumpers tonight. And just like, I can't express how it took one in the first quarter. And as soon as I see Jalen take that jumper, I'm like, why am I watching? Like, why am I watching this game? Because Jalen Duren, this is so unserious. In the first quarter, like you're jacking up jumpers. Like, why? get to the rim. Do like back your man down the post, use some of your spin moves like he did that tonight and finished a couple of them. He missed a heap, but why a jumper? Like I just it feels like as soon as he's shooting those, I'm like, this game's like honestly going to be no point watching it because I feel like Jalen's just going to be out here dribbling around, not paying attention on defense. He's even doing that thing tonight where he kind of complains to the refs, doesn't get back quick enough. Like stuff your big man just can't be doing. He needs to sprint back down the floor to help rebound, to help, contest shots, and just it's one of those Andre Drummond games. And I must admit, he's like this season, it's honestly been so much like Andre Drummond. And I've said this multiple times, but it's like, feels like he's so focused on his offensive game. His defensive game is like not improved. I feel like his defense has like, gotten worse. And like the passing just feels like it's disappeared. Like that was what I loved about rookie Jalen Duren. And like I remember putting a thread out after his rookie season of just some of the passes and the reads he made. Like it was so promising. And I just feel like we don't see that anymore. Like he does it a little bit when Cade's in the lineup. And I feel like maybe that's because Cade gets Jalen more involved. But sometimes it's just disappointing when like Cade's not there and you just see Jalen tonight kind of doing whatever he likes. And none of that looks good for his development, honestly. Like it's just bad process, bad habits. Like I don't ever want to put a limit on someone like Jalen Duren's ceiling, but I just feel pretty confident saying there is never going to be a point in the next 5 years of his NBA career where he's taking jump shots, particularly jumpers off like one or two dribbles. Like that, I don't think that should ever be a part of his game because he is so damaging around the rim, because he's so damaging as a role man and has potentially such a good screen setter. Like I never want to see him dribbling around the elbow, jacking up jumpers because it's a bad shot for him. It's a bad shot for the team, so I'll do a deep dive on Duren and Ivy once the season's finally done and I can really look into the stats and we can go through like good patches of the season and bad parts. But, whew, man, considering those two guys were like the rookie seasons they had and how we're finishing this season, it's not ideal. It's not ideal. And, you'd like to hope in these next 5 games they can finish on a high note, but man, with some of the things they're doing at the moment, and if Cade's not playing, a guy like Jalen Duren, I could see kind of not having the best close to a season. So, look, they are obviously affected by the injuries this team has that makes it harder for them. And maybe I'm being a bit harsh, but I just feel like they were, prior to this season, like they were two absolute core. They're part of the core 4, like they are foundational pieces. Now I'm like the fact that I just feel like it's okay, it's not like crazy now to feel like one of them will be gone this off season, or, it honestly feels logical to move one of them to get someone more ready now to help win. Like the fact that that's kind of the thought process for a lot of us fans is kind of a reflection of the seasons they've had, because after last season, we were all so high on them. I feel like the majority of the fan base, but now it's more, there's still plenty of potential, but I just feel like they haven't had that impact. Ivy had that one really hot stretch around the All-Star break, which I keep referring to, but, the early part of his season was disrupted, but, he's had a good 20 to 25 games now, and it just feels like maybe he's injured. I think that's where I'll end, because I'm still so high on Jaden Ivey, but it's been very rough, and I would like to think I've done a decent job of calling it out, but let me know how you're feeling about those sophomores, because I'm very interested to hear what fans think. So that'll do it for today's show, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for all the support throughout the season. We're almost there. We've got 5 or 6 games to go. In many ways, I can't believe this season's almost over, but it just feels like it's gone forever. So I'll be back I should have reviews of both games over the weekend. And as always, go Pistons.